Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Aidan.
I'm Gaynor.
I'm Sophie.
Today we're doing 5 US states with way colder winters than Britain.
That's not difficult. We don't really get really cold weather here, do we?
No.
No, I would have thought that there'll be a lot of places in America that are colder in winter, but like the weather here is just a lot more grim all year round in total anyway, I think.
It just rains a lot.
But in the winter, like it is like just wet and windy.
Windy and cold,
and,
yeah.
And that's the worst, I think.
Yeah.
I'd rather it be cold. I'd rather it be cold and not rainy.
The thing is, if it's cold, you know it's cold, so you put your scarf and your gloves on your coat and you go out. But here it goes like just muggy, like rainy and
grey.
And so that when it's raining and the wind's
Miserable.
going like, so the rain's coming at a sideways angle, it's just hitting you in the face. But what's your guesses on the states that are going to be colder in the winter? I'm thinking it's going to be after like the northern ones, like probably like Wisconsin.
Well, New York and New Jersey's freezing in the winter. Blooming freezing.
Blooming freezing.
But in the summer, like it's really hot.
You've got a definite 4 seasons, so in the winter it's freezing cold, so you deal with it because you know in the spring it's going to be lovely and the summer's
But like how cold was it? Like was it way colder?
way colder, bone chilling cold.
Like what temperatures are we talking?
-10.
Oh really?
Wow.
That is probably
I think in Alaska.
Alaska.
Got to be like the
There,
coldest
Alaska
one,
will
I
be in
Yeah,
there.
that's a given actually. But yeah, I'm thinking like Wisconsin, maybe Michigan,
Yeah,
around that way.
yeah, I agree.
We'll find out though, eh?
Yeah.
8.3 degrees Fahrenheit is 24 degrees colder than Scotland's average. Scotland being the coldest country in the United Kingdom. And these are averages.
Do you reckon he's hot in there recording that?
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those pertains to the weather, specifically the temperature, especially at this time of year when it's bloody cold here in America. And of course, I've talked about this a lot on this channel. It is freezing in the United States, specifically in the northern portion of it at this time of year. But growing up in England, I had my doubts about that. I watched a lot of American television, assumed that everywhere was palm trees and beaches, and thought, yes, I want to move there at some point in my life. This place, England, is freezing. Well, let's take a look at the facts on that, because it's not strictly true. Now, granted, of course, there are times when Britain really does get down to the point of freezing. It's not a particularly common occurrence. It will happen now and again. Indeed, if you were to look at the statistics on this, if you were to look at the data from 1981 to 2010, as I did, you'll find that during the months of December, January, February, and March, which we sort of consider winter quite loosely in terms of this, that in terms of its average low temperatures, did average about freezing exactly. So 0 degrees C or, 33 degrees Fahrenheit. But that's Scotland. That's the coldest country in Britain. What about my homeland of England? Well, in that very same time, by the very same metric, England sort of averaged around about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And that, of course, is about 1.5 Celsius above freezing. So that's the low average, right? That's not the average, and it's not the high average. So on the whole, you're not really expecting to see Britain reach the point of freezing or even go beyond it. That doesn't mean it doesn't go beyond it or beneath it at any point. Of course, it has in history. The lowest recorded temperature in history happened in Scotland. No surprise there. No surprise indeed that it happened in Aberdeenshire in Scotland, and the temperature got down to minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's minus 27 degrees Celsius. That to us is cold. I mean, I think that is to people here is quite cold. Similarly, the coldest temperature in English history was minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, completely unfit for humans. Nobody should be walking around in
Zero
that.
here in the
But,
winter.
I've come to find since moving here, and this is a warning, by the way, to any British people that are also thinking of moving to the northern portion of the United States, it gets way colder than it does in Britain. Now, a bit of backstory for those of you that don't know. I left the United Kingdom about 11 years ago and moved to America's Midwest, specifically to a state called Indiana. Indiana is pretty cold. It's certainly colder on average.
I was gonna say, he was talking before how like he wanted to move to America because he wanted to move into the hot
Yeah.
palm trees and
and
stuff like
sunshine.
that. He's not really gone to the right state then, has he?
No, like Florida, obviously you
Yeah.
can understand it a
I'm
bit
guessing
more.
that's where he's got a job there.
Yeah.
I think.
Why, does he ever say like why you moved to America in the first place? In any of his videos?
I'm not
See,
sure.
why do you, I don't know about if he got a job there.
Is his
He
partner American,
probably
maybe?
seems
His
like-
wife's American, yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon he does YouTube for a job.
Yeah, but I'm saying when he moved there.
Yeah.
Was he doing YouTube or was he... Well, I'm sure in one of his videos he said why you moved. I think it was for his job, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm not sure, to be fair.
Yeah, let us know if you know.
During winter than Great Britain. But it doesn't even come close to rivaling the 5 states that we have on this list today, which, to be fair, are not even fit for tardigrades. And the same goes for Chicago too. This place gets even colder than Indianapolis. I mean, astronomical. You may have seen my video last year during the polar vortex. I almost froze to death. I didn't. That's a lie. I was inside. I spoke a moment ago about the astronomically low temperature set in Scotland of 17 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, hold on to your hats because the lowest ever recorded in Chicago was at O'Hare Airport and it was minus 27 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 33 degrees Celsius below zero. That's why I've got this coat.
Jesus.
You know, I mean, I shouldn't really be wearing it inside. This is a studio, but you suffer for your art. And so this video is really for 2 types of people, I suppose. It's for people from Britain, like me, that are thinking of moving over to the northern United States. And it's also for people that live in colder places than Chicago and just want to gloat after all these years of me talking about how bad it is here. I think it's hell. I can't imagine living where you do. I'm going to have to, because without further ado, here are 5 states with way colder winters than Britain. So I can tell you from experience that Wisconsin is bloody freezing. We went there for our anniversary, which just happens to be Valentine's Day, don't ask. And of course, Valentine's Day is during one of the coldest periods in the year in general. So going up to Milwaukee at that time of year, not the best idea. We'd never been, so we just wanted to check it out for the first time. And we're glad we did, but we've been advised to go again in the summer to get the real experience. Because it's just that freezing. I mean, you know, looking at those same metrics that we looked at for Scotland earlier on, during that 1981 to 2010 period, when you're talking about average lows and you add up the 5 most populous cities in Wisconsin and then take the average of that, you're looking at about 18.7 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 7.4 degrees C. Now, the staggering thing about that is that the most populous cities in Wisconsin are kind of more geared toward the south of the state rather than the north, where it's even colder. So the entire state average would be colder even than that. Now, it was quite hard to get a lot of the sort of just statewide averages in general. So for this very video, what I've done is taken the 5 most populous cities in the states in question and taken that same average. Nonetheless, people far smarter than me figured out that these 5 are the 5 coldest states in total. And Wisconsin, like some of the other states on this list, suffers the cold air from Canada. And because of that, you get state records like minus 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just awful. If you went out in that temperature, I'm fairly certain your head would fall off. And that was in 1996. So there are people watching this that remember that. So if you do, let me know in the comments down below if you lived in Sawyer County 24 years ago and how you kept your head on. Statistically, Wisconsin does have the 5th coldest winters in the entire nation. And I'm glad it did, because I wasn't able to include it on my list of snowiest states, you know, much to the chagrin of people that live in Wisconsin. The same can't be said of our next entry. You've got to hand it to the state of Maine, you know, one of the snowiest places in the United States and one of the coldest. It made the top 5 in both lists, and it just happens that I've been there twice. One for each weather type, I suppose, although I should say I have not had the misfortune of being there in winter. But just how cold can it get? Well, its average low temperatures just about beat Wisconsin. Once again, as with all of the states on this list, I did take the most populous cities in the state of Maine, just because those are the places that British people or any people are more likely to move to within that state. Again, if you want an idea of what hell sounds like, then just imagine that these are actually wild underestimates for the entire state. And in the case of Maine, its 5 most populous cities averaged a low temperature of about 17.6 degrees Fahrenheit during the winter months, minus 8 degrees C. Now we're getting somewhere pretty treacherous. These are averages, all right? These aren't extremes. And that's just in the likes of Portland, Augusta, Bangor, right? If you were to move far upstate, then your head, at the very least, would start to wobble or just freeze still. But funnily enough, while the average winter temperatures in Maine just about beat Wisconsin, its lowest all-time recorded temperature did not. In fact, Aroostook County yielded a very pathetic minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 45.6 degrees C for anybody who's keeping count.
Do you know how low, how cold that is?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Well, I've told the story before when we first moved there and we came out of our apartment and I went outside to get in the car and I went, ooh, it's freezing. And my lip split and was all like I had tissue stuck to it because it was so blooming cold.
I can
crazy.
barely survive the weather here, like when it goes just below 0.
Yeah, like I'm the same. Like I hate the cold, and like, I have to like proper wrap myself up with like an electric blanket. And
I don't mind the cold. It's the rain and the wind that I don't like.
Yeah, I'm the same.
If it's cold, you know it's cold, so you put your coat on, you put your gloves on, you put your scarf on.
But I can't imagine it being much colder than what we have. Do you know what I mean? When you actually feel the cold.
Yeah, no, it is.
Like it's cold enough what like we get over here.
I think what we get over here is that damp cold.
And it's just like an annoying cold because it is like the wind. It probably makes it feel a bit colder as well.
Yeah.
But over there, the cold is cold, but it's quite brisk. It's nice to go for a walk in, wrapped up.
Whereas you wouldn't even dream of doing it over here, going for a walk in the snow. I wouldn't.
I mean, I'm not sure about minus 45 degrees Celsius.
No, honestly, believe me, it is. It's nice. It's not that brisk weather is nice. It's cold, but because you're wrapped up and you're walking, you don't feel cold. Your face does. Like when you come in, your face is like normally really red and tight.
Just wear like a balaclava or something.
I didn't. I used to wear a scarf, but I used to put loads and loads of moisturiser on and Vaseline on my lips when I went for a walk. But it was nice.
I would just stay at home.
Same.
Well, I had a newborn baby and I was going stir crazy. Your dad was at work.
Oh, yeah.
So I just took him out, wrapped up.
Like, get me out of the house for a bit.
Quivering hand. But the next one, as is customary with these types of lists, blows that record completely out of the ice. It may not surprise you to learn that the state of Minnesota has a particularly high concentration of Scandinavian ancestry. And that's Scandinavian people would love Minnesota, wouldn't they? I mean, most Scandinavians were probably born in the snow, is my understanding. So they're fine with it. And they drink copious amounts of coffee and they're good. They're good. For the rest of us, this one's sort of taking the cake a little bit. But I am glad it's on the list for the very reason I was glad Wisconsin's on the list, because it didn't quite enter the list of snowiest states in America, which is balmy because it is a snowy state, just like Wisconsin. But its impressive climatic feature is just how bloody cold it is. And there are probably people watching at home going, oh, you're including wind chill in this. No, I'm not. These stats are actually before wind chill as well. Didn't mention that, did I? Minnesota's average low temperature, and again, this is just in the most populated cities, was 11.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That is minus 10 degrees C. Woefully horrendous. And that does not include Duluth or, other places up in the north of the state. I suspect northern Minnesotans turn into T-1000 after he falls in the liquid nitrogen. They walk out the house, freeze over, try and walk a bit, and then their legs just crumble. You'd literally have to take with you one of those outdoor heaters that you find at train stations in Chicago just to survive. You might even have to press it against you. Don't do that. I'm not giving advice to anybody that's going out in winter. Anyway, after getting a brain freeze just now, I'm going to go back to the facts. And the facts are that the lowest recorded temperature in Minnesota ever was minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 51 degrees Celsius. I mean, it surely doesn't get any colder than that. In the world, much less the United States. It does.
Just press pause. This is when we arrived, 1996.
Yeah.
I remember it was cold. Yeah. It must have been cold
Just
everywhere.
a cold year.
Yeah, it was just one of those years that was really, really cold.
I was going to say, what do you reckon the number 2 will be? Because we're guessing that number 1 will be Alaska. But
yeah.
I've seen it.
You have seen it?
Yeah, so I just don't want you to look at the screen.
Okay.
I think North Dakota.
You've seen it?
She saw it.
I've never experienced a North Dakota winter, and looking at some of the facts, I probably never will. Once again, North Dakota is a very, very snowy state. Don't get me wrong, it just didn't make the list of snowiest states in the United States. But it certainly makes this list. It is the second coldest pound-for-pound state in the nation. Now, granted, I did build it up to suggest that it absolutely demolished the record of Minnesota, but in fact, they're tied. Minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit is also the record for North Dakota, but where it does beat Minnesota and every other entry on this list, including our final entry, its top 5 most populated cities averaged a low temperature of 8.3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's an average low. So let's put that into context now that we've delved deep into the snow, into the list. Words don't mean anything anymore. 8.3 degrees Fahrenheit is 24 degrees colder than Scotland's average. Scotland being the coldest country in the United Kingdom. And these are averages. This is mental. Someone needs to check North Dakota just to see if microbes are still thriving. So if you know anybody that lives in North Dakota, call for help. I do have it penciled in, though, to visit there at some point, and that point being probably in the middle of a summer. I'd be very interested to know if the entire state by then is just one big pool of water. Good summer swim, bring my shorts. Sounds good. And as the temperature continues to drop throughout, so does our next entry. So our next entry is about to drop, is what I meant. It probably comes as no surprise that Alaska made it to number one.
That's what I meant.
It probably does come as a surprise that I'm dressed like a bounty hunter. Just bear with me on this and we will get through it. Alaska is bloody cold, but of course it is. It's much more northern than the rest of the United States. It's also more western and eastern, fun fact. But all that aside, if you take some of its most populous cities, so Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau and the like, take the average of their lowest winter temperatures, you get a whopping 14.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's actually not as high as I expected. And that's because a lot of their most populated cities are very much in the southern portion of Alaska. And Alaska is a huge state. So this now, I'm starting to see why using popular cities is bad for data, and I shouldn't have done that. It specifically doesn't work for Alaska just because of its sheer size and the fact that in the northern portion it gets just astronomically cold. So chances are if you are going to move to Alaska, it probably will be one of the big cities and you'll probably be fine. Unless that city is Fairbanks, which, and I had to reread this a few times, its average low temperature in that same exact time wasn't just below zero on the Celsius scale. It was minus 11.25 degrees Fahrenheit, and
Wow.
I'm never going to Fairbanks, Alaska. Alaska's cold, and not only is it top of the pile when we're talking about average low temperatures during winter, but its coldest ever temperature would make Mr. Freeze cry horrible frozen tears, and he was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. The coldest temperature recorded in the state of Alaska, and indeed the United States of America, was more like something you'd see on Pluto. It was minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 62 degrees Celsius.
What?
I overdid it for this video. I overdressed for the comedy factor.
That's
but the
Eskimo
truth is,
weather.
I'd probably die in that temperature if I went out in just this for, an hour. That could be an exaggeration. I've got nothing to check it against because I've never known. No one's known temperatures like that except maybe, 4 people from the early 1970s. If you're watching, let me. It's very unlikely. That's it for this episode. A bonus mention for South Dakota and Michigan and, Montana. They didn't quite make the cut, but they weren't far away. And in Montana's case, it once recorded minus 70 degrees, so don't move there. As ever, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. And I'm just going to remove that now. It's very...
Mate, that is mind blowing how it gets that cold.
Do you know what though? You don't get sick because there's no germs.
That is very true. Yeah.
Nobody
You
gets
might
sick.
get a bit of a cold, but I'd rather that than
You don't get like any bugs.
like
It's
stomach
just-
bugs
yeah, There's nothing. Everything's dead. So that's the advantage of being in the cold. I do actually like the cold. I'd rather be cold than warm. I can
Need to know about that.
Put my coat
No, I'd
on
rather
and
be
wrap
like
up.
warm on a beach somewhere.
Where if it's too warm, I'm like, and there's nothing you can do. You can't take your skin off.
Yeah.
You
fair
definitely
enough.
can't do that.
But I would rather it be warm, but not not hot.
Yeah. My ideal weather is probably about 16 degrees. It's
I'm
not too
probably-
That's
hot.
what it was today when
Yeah.
I was in my car.
Yeah.
No, that's probably a little bit too cold then.
Yeah, same.
I would
20?
personally for me. I like going out in like a hoodie and trackies. I wouldn't really want to go out in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah, well, that's the perfect weather today. Then that's not.
Yeah,
because you don't
maybe
have to wear a coat.
maybe a little bit. See, do you know what I went to London the other day, and when I left Manchester in the morning, it was freezing and the weather was cold. I put a coat on. When I got to London, I literally couldn't wear my coat. It was warm.
Yeah, because you left at like 7:30 in the morning.
No, but I looked at like I wasn't really thinking. I looked at the weather just for Manchester for the day.
Instead of looking at where
London,
you're going to.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like the
And then you have
difference.
to carry your coat.
Yeah.
That's so annoying.
Yeah.
how you
I remember we
grab
were on
your
the
feet.
bus and like one of them was like, "Oh yeah, but it's actually like quite hot down there." And then my office bloke Daz was like, "What, down there? Where do you think we're going? Spain?" When we got there, it was actually pretty like a big difference.
Yeah, out on the river.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Bye.